Welcome, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to Kenny's Life Thoughts and Retirement. I wanted to do a follow up video from yesterday. Uh, I caught myself, especially looking at the video after the fact, of I felt a bit negative yesterday and overwhelmed, and it may have came through on that video yesterday. Uh, Again, I can't emphasize enough the once we moved here, I knew that it was going to be a challenge to restore the property, um, and I knew it was going to be a pretty large undertaking. And when we got up here and we started peeling back the onion, it it was just way worse than I ever could have imagined. But that being said, I have to say that when I get to that point, like I was yesterday, and eventually I'll show you a video of the trailer. I filled up the trailer with metal, um, and there was a big oil tank up there. They used to heat with oil up here, and one of the buildings had an oil furnace in it, and I yarded that tank up there after we first moved up here. But anyway, I couldn't lift it up and put it in the trailer, so I took it down to the round barn where I have a hoist in there. I'll hoist up this tank and back my trailer underneath it and lower it down so I can get it off to the metal recycling facility. But after I get that done, I don't know that I'll film that process. I don't know, who knows. But after I get that done, I'm going to take that load. I'll take a picture of it so you guys can see, how much stuff was up there. I filled up my trailer basically with metal, and and I don't know why. Maybe I should have taken it as an omen yesterday. For some reason, my phone was cutting off and then turning back on. That's why you see three videos of the of the thing I was doing yesterday. But when I get to that point, and I felt myself like several times over the years just being extremely overwhelmed by the amount of volume of restoration that we've gone through up here. And it's not always all been like bad, I guess, per se, but it has definitely been very overwhelming. And there was, my grandma and my grandpa were really loved antiquities, and there was probably 3,500 square feet of building space up here. Buildings are still here. Well, one of them is my shop now. That was one of them, and then this big building we used to call the museum. It was filled with antiquities, and a lot of people, when they would come up here, would just get so enamored by all of it and how neat it was. And every time I was just in my mind shaking my head, going, "Well, it's neat and everything, but boy, you can't take all that stuff with you." And and that's very true. Um, but what I used to get excited about was the land itself. I am just over the top in love with this place. Always have all my life, and I feel very, very fortunate that we're able to spend the rest of our life up here. And that's really what our goal is. As long as we can physically do the work, physically manage the place, we plan on being here for the rest of our lives. And I believe it to be a really, really special place. It's hard to explain. Um, but like I said yesterday, I was feeling myself going down that negative rabbit hole, and sometimes you just can't help it. Uh, you know, the scenarios here haven't always been ideal, but you know, the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's really how we've approached this. Sometimes I got a little bit overzealous and anxious to get certain projects done, and didn't always go my way, but at the end of the day, it's getting accomplished. Yesterday, again, I was feeling a bit overwhelmed and just kind of shaking my head. You probably sensed it in the videos. I don't know, but I didn't want to let that all go without having to say that once I get to that point where I'm not as positive as I need to be, I'll oftentimes, I'm not going to, like, for instance, waste a day like today. Today is absolutely beautiful out here. And I'm not sure what time it is. I think it's around 11 a.m. But I absolutely just love coming out here. And when you're looking over my shoulder here, uh, there's a beam across the top up there that has a sign on it. And I'm not a very religious person, but I do find myself saying that I'm I'm pretty spiritual, and I believe that to be true. I may not be religious, being able to spout Bible verses and things like that, and know the Bible like the back of my hand, but I do feel like I'm very, very spiritual. And this one passage that I will say in the Bible that stands out to me helps me when I get to that place where I was yesterday. I don't know if you can read that or not or see that, but that's a piece of cedar that we had cut down. Or it actually fell down across the creek down there. There's a creek bottom down there. It's a year-round creek. But anyway, a cedar tree fell over, and my neighbor across the street with the sawmill, him and I cut up a bunch of cedar, and that was kind of a live edge piece that was left over. I attached it to that beam right there, and it's Psalms 121. Uh, just a few words from that passage, and it says, "I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills." So when I get troubled, I come out here and I look out across the canyon over there up on that mountainside, and I think to myself how very fortunate I am. Um, it's a pretty, like, it's a pretty special place. I'm sitting right now in what we call the pavilion. My grandmother was married here. Her last husband and her were married on this spot right here. And so there was two reasons why I built this place. The first one, the main reason, was I wanted to build something in memory of her and her last husband, even though he technically wasn't my grandpa, but I loved her last husband. He was a great guy, and I got along with him pretty well. And anyway, I wanted to build something in remembrance of my grandmother. And so we built this pavilion. The second reason was uh, our daughters had a teammate in high school, and she got married on this spot. And so she wanted to have her wedding up here. And it's the only wedding we've had since we've moved up here. Anyway, she got married, her and her husband to be, and the person that married him stood right here on this spot. And everybody was sitting out that way. All the chairs and all the tables and everything it was a really neat wedding. It was pretty fun. It was a lot of work. Kathleen and I spent months and months that year getting the place ready for the wedding, including building this place. But so like I said, I will sit out, take a hike. I'll even take a hike a lot of times when I'm feeling like I was yesterday, and just get out of my head. And that's really the point I'm trying to make here is I get stuck in my head and I'm looking at the task in front of me, and it can be a bit overwhelming. But thankfully, hopefully you can still hear me above the wind chime here. Thankfully, I have a way to get myself out of that doldrum and get back to being very thankful for what we have. So that's kind of a short explanation as to where my head was yesterday and where it's at today. Today, I am not going to touch anything up there. The building that I was up, where I was, is up that way. And I got pretty much what I wanted to get done yesterday. I mean, there's a whole load of garbage that needs to go to the dump, but I'll wait on that. Again, I can only do so much, and then I start to lose touch here. But today is so beautiful outside, and the sun is off to the south right now. That's south right there. Basically, over my shoulder is north. It's kind of a south. South would be more this way, but the sun's over this way. Anyway, yeah, it's beautiful. It's clear as blue sky, not a cloud in the sky. And again, another thing to be real thankful for. It is absolutely gorgeous up here right now. So yeah, I love coming out here, sitting down and just looking over everything. And my head's starting to get clear because I know that the, the property restoration, not so much the buildings, some of the buildings need some attention, but it's the property restoration, the amount of stuff that was, you know, laying about and inside some of the buildings too, but it's starting to get whittled way back. And Kathleen and I are looking forward to being able to just maintain, you know, yard work is a constant all throughout the spring, summer, and early fall, but I love being outside. I would prefer to be outside doing the yard work than anything else. And again, the cleanup phase of this whole situation, it's been 10 years. I'm not saying we were doing it constantly for 10 years, but we did quite a bit. So feeling much better, much more thankful for sure. I woke up this morning just going, you know, I'm just so thankful that I get to wake up and live on this very, very special place. And to me, it's very special. It's always been that way. I, my grandparents bought this place in 1968, and they worked on it for 2 years before moving up here from town. And in 1970, they moved up here with their two daughters, and that's about the time when I started coming up, sometime in the early 70s, you know, shortly them after them moving up here. And I would come up, not all the time, but fairly regularly, especially in the summertime. I would spend a fair amount of time up here when I was growing up. But I've always just absolutely been in touch with and, you know, just love this place. I know it like the back of my hand, and I feel very fortunate. So that's the promise I make to myself, and that is, I'm fortunate to be here. I need to do whatever it takes that I physically can do to help restore it, to help pay it back. And that's why I'm doing this, to help pay it back and get this property to the place where, you know, you can really look at it and go, wow, even it's special. So that being said, I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for listening to me ramble a little bit. As always, thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching my video. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if so, when you subscribe and you like my video, share them, like them, if you are so inclined. I really appreciate it. Be safe and be well. And as always, make good choices.